I'm LaRie.
And I'm Nick B.
Listen, we're just two single girls from the City of Roses discussing all things love, lust, and perception.
And roses are a symbol of all things beautiful about love.
But as you know, love can get a little dirty, so we're here to talk about it.
Dirty Roses Podcast starts now.
Hey, I'm LaRie.
And I'm Nick B.
And welcome to Dirty Roses Podcast. Today we're talking about something that I am really familiar, well, not familiar with, but I prefer, and something that you're familiar with that and you don't prefer. Yep. And our guest is familiar with, and we don't know if she prefers or not yet, but we're going to find out. But we are being joined by our childhood friends. Mm-hmm. I think I've known her longer. I get to say that for a change. Ow. I'm going to say this little background story. So, you know, me being biracial. Our guest here was one of my very first black friends. And I used to get like the full-fledged black experience at her house. All the cousins would be over there. I had a crush on her older brother. The sleepovers, the everything, like the whole gambit of all things that black families do, I got to experience at her house. Meanwhile, she's coming to my house like, I love coming to your house. And I'm like, let's switch. But we used to play games. We used to play the little lip sync battle games where we would lip sync songs and do competitions. And it was a good time. But very good friend of ours, Indya Davis, right out of the East Coast. You were in North Carolina, correct? South Carolina? Yeah. Yes, North Carolina. Ow, okay. And Miss Indya is the global brand marketer. She's been doing really big things in her aspect of the world, traveling, being on red carpets, and doing the thing, which makes her a great guest for this podcast. But Nick B, you know Indya too.
Yeah, so Indya and I, we went to high school together.
Yes.
We were on cheer. Were you dance also? We did dance? Yep. Cheer and dance. Uh-huh. Deb's sisters.
Oh yes, that's right. We're debutantes.
Yes. And so we absolutely go way back. And I remember I believe we were in the same major, right? For communications, photography, and video. Shout out to Mr. Kelly. Yep, there it is. So
for those of you that don't know, the high school that they went to had trades that you guys could major in high school. Not every high school had that, but their specific school had that, which I was kind of jealous of because I had science and math.
Okay, well, you know.
Yeah,
so yes, we're all pretty good friends here. We go way back, and so it's such an honor to have you on our show.
Thank you. So, well, as you guys know, we start every episode with a story, and so we're gonna talk personal here. I'm new to dating, and I prefer not to date in my city. I'm not new to dating anymore, am I?
No.
Is that why you're laughing? Yeah. Because it's been 2 years, and you're like, bitch, you've been dating.
Right. You date more than me at this point.
No, whatever. These streets.
She's the official habitual dater now.
I am.
Passing that baton.
Is it habitual if it's only been like less than 15,
it's
20 years?
It's still more than me. It's still more.
Don't do me. But yeah, so having been in a relationship for so long, I missed the train for dating people who have not been taken or tainted in our town. So my preference currently is to not date people in my city because I either know too much about you or you have smashed a friend or relative. And so I just prefer not to dip and dabble in those buckets of people, which leaves my pool very, very small. So and also because I'm a very private person, I prefer not to have my business out in the streets. So
as we sit on a podcast.
And tell all my goddamn bit. Right, that's very special.
And so to your point, I think if I lived in the city limits of Portland, I would probably have that same thought process. But I'm actually the opposite of where I do not like dating out of my area code. I mean, assuming that there's different area codes within the city limits that I work in or live and work in, that's one thing. But I used to, when I was younger, think that it was really kind of like the thing to date somebody out of town.
Felt
I'd be
cool.
like, oh yeah, my guy, he lives out of state and all this stuff, right? But today, that's not my bag at all. I'd rather you be within at least a half-hour drive from me because ain't nobody trying to drive miles and hours to get some. I just want you to be there.
Okay. And so we bring Indya on the show because you have lived in multiple area codes and you've had the experience of possibly dating people in these different regions and spaces, but also having the choice of dating somebody in your own area or continuing to date people out of town. So what has your experience been with dating within your area and then outside your area?
So first, I'm super excited to be here with you both. So thank you so much for inviting me. You never know, I guess, what you're gonna get from this one. So I'm excited. But dating, yeah. So I've lived in 3 different cities. Well, of course, 4 with Portland. And I had to date outside of the city or the state because I traveled a lot. So most jobs that I've ever, well, in marketing, I've always had a traveling position. So it's hard to date somebody sometimes when you're in the city, especially when I was younger, if they aren't comfortable with a woman who travels a lot. So you end up dating people on the road. So that was always interesting. So my experience has been like ebbs and flows. Is, if you are dating somebody that's mature that can handle you being on the road and you live in the same city, then you're good. But if not, if he's got some insecurities, then you have to date somebody at your same level who also travels just as much as you do. So that's different.
And how do you meet somebody who travels? Like, is there like a traveling group?
Travel group.
We travel for work, so we want to date in this pool of people that also travel. Is like there like a network of y'all? Or
the day when I was in the music industry, you don't dip your, you don't, as they say, you don't eat where you shit.
Right.
But I did date a few people in the industry. So we met on the road and it was a little bit easier because we were in the same industry and it just made sense. Now meeting people, I've done online dating. Ooh.
Isn't it tough? Isn't it rough? Oh God. It's tough.
It's rough. It's rough. So I've done the online dating. I meet people out here and there, but Charlotte dating pool, everybody like 5'3".
Oh.
But she's not wrong. So I was in Charlotte. I was out there in Charlotte for a conference and it was my first time going. I remember before I went, folks said, "Oh yeah, it has the same vibe and feel as Portland." And so they're like, "Oh, you're going to love it because it has like that same hometowny but city feel." And I'm like, "Okay, so I'm going to love it." And I'm looking around like, "Ooh, I'm going to love me a man out here too, right? Let me find somebody." And I'm already a tall girl. I am whole 5'8.25". And I was looking around like, "All right, shouties." Okay.
She said, "Shouty."
That's exactly how. And you want to give people a chance. So, maybe the universe is saying, "Hey, your man is 5'5". I don't think
that. You do. You start giving little short folks little shots because you're like, maybe this is what little short shots. You're like, maybe this is what God has planned for me.
Oh, and so far not, huh?
So far, no.
So I say all that to say, it's hard. I mean, at 40 years old now, I'm on the road, not as much. So I have to force myself to get out because when I'm not working, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm at home. But, he's not about to come knocking at my door. So I have to find a lounge or, you want to find other places where you can meet people because I'm not doing online dating anymore. That's
I feel like that's where I'm at too.
Yeah, so last season we had an episode where we were talking about somebody who met their husband on an online site, and I was like, "You ain't gonna find me on no online dating."
And guess who we can find on online dating right now?
Just one, because I was like, I'm gonna just dibble and dabble on this social media dating source, and I was right. I don't like it, and it's not for me. I'm an in-person person. Yeah. Except for It's weird because I don't know how I meet people offline or out of state. I think I meet people out of state.
Because you meet them when you're out with me. Goodness. She'll come visit me and she'll be like, "So I met someone great."
And she's like, "How? We were together."
Right.
Meet them like in the airport? Where did you meet them?
No, so I met a guy. Oh, this is bad. Trap house. It wasn't a good story, but it was a story. We went to a go-go live performance. Yeah. And I met a guy, and we chatted for about a month or so. He flew me out, and it was horrible. I've been getting flued out. They've not been great, but I've been flued out. I'm learning to not take every trip that is offered, but so I meet people when I'm out, when I'm traveling, and not great.
So, but on the subject of meeting people when you're out traveling in India, this is a great question for you too. So you're meeting folks and you're attempting to date. If they already live out of state and much like you're established and settled where you are, what's the end game? how do you determine like this person is someone I want to take serious? Because that's kind of the point of dating, is meeting that one that you really want to dedicate your time and energy to. But if you guys live in Texas and Charlotte, like who's moving for who? Like why do we or do you like what? That's always been my hesitation.
That's a great question. I think if somebody may not like this, but I think sometimes if you're bored, you might entertain it because it gives you something to do. Yeah. However, if the conversation is interesting enough and you're open to moving, you may explore like, hey, it's, I'm open to it. For me, I need somebody within some level of close proximity. Like if you're about 4 or 5 hours away, that's not too bad. It's not, and I'm saying like driving distance. I'm not driving, but it's still somewhat okay. But at this point, I need you closer. Like, because if I want to go on a date, I want to do something, you're not close. And that's the struggle, because you might meet great guys on the road. And I think you use your judgment. Like if you just have a connection and you're like, wow, like I really want to continue talking to this person, you have to, it's hard sometimes for me to decide, like, is it a non-negotiable? I don't know if distance is completely a non-negotiable. If I meet somebody that has a great vibe, we have a great conversation, I'm open to exploring, but you have to ask those questions up front. Hey, we live in 2 different places. Who's willing to move? Not to say we're there yet, but are you open? Are you open to moving to a different city?
Exactly.
And if they're like no, then you already know what it is.
Exactly. And I felt like that was always one of the bigger hangups that I had, is because I've always wanted to be very intentional with dating. Sure, it's fun to just have fun, and that's cool and all, but for me, my intention has always been to find someone that I really want to spend my time with, and maybe that takes dating around to narrow it down. But if knowing that's my intention, and I'm like, you've got this amazing family and career and roots where you are, and that's not actually something that where I want to move to. Maybe my career won't allow me to make that move if I wanted to. So now I'm thinking, gosh, do I want to change my career pattern? And like, is this really, how much of this? And then I'm sorry, I'm over here cutting myself off, but I'm thinking to myself, like, how do you get to know someone on the level of who they really are if you're not actually spending time with them in their environment on a regular basis also? You don't.
You don't. And I've I've dated someone in the city, and our schedules don't align because we both travel so much, and it's still hard to get to know them. So I think that's the challenge. Like you have to, and if you're dating long distance, you're going to have to do FaceTime. You're going to have to be, like you said, intentional, make a schedule. We're not going to go 2-3 weeks without seeing each other. Is that realistic? I think if 2 people really want to do it, they will. But I've dated someone in the same city, and it's like, okay, you're a parent, I'm a parent, I travel, you travel, so we're going 3 weeks without seeing each other. And I think no matter where you are, you have to be intentional, because the same thing can happen if you live in the same city.
Right. No, facts. And you mentioned being a parent. So in the situations where you've dated somebody long distance, where you've tried to make it work, and maybe haven't gotten this far yet, but at what point do you introduce a person to your child if it's long distance, or do you ever?
For me, I don't until we're serious. I do not. No one has ever. Somebody's gonna see this, but one person outside of course his father has met my child, but no one can meet him, because if he's meeting you, that's serious. Like, I mean, and when I not just, hey, let me, this is a friend of a friend, but if you're meeting my son, if I'm introducing you as a special friend or whatever the case may be, I want you to be in his life. I want you to build a relationship. And when you're a parent, you have to be very cautious about who you put in someone's life, in your child's life, but also, are you both in a good place? You don't want them getting confused, like, well, mommy, where's this person? Where's that? What happened to this person? And we're not doing, oh, that's uncle this, uncle. No, we don't do it. No.
Oh, God.
Are you ever, knowing that you, now, to just my own transparency, I don't have children, so I've always wondered, I respect that we don't introduce men quickly to the kids, but how do you gauge the point where it's also necessary to see even how they would interact with our child? Like, say you have fallen in love with the one, and then when you do want to integrate, and then you find out that, I actually don't like your parenting style, and I realize that you have children, and maybe I've seen how you interact with your child, but it's different because it's your child. And now I'm having to see how you're going to interact with my child and respecting the boundaries and expectations in my home if there was never any kind of working up to that.
Yeah.
So you have to be you have to listen with a very close ear what people say, because I've dated someone with a child or children, and I've dated someone who didn't. And so, you have to just pay attention to some of the context clues. You have to pay attention to how much are they with their own children, right? What's the situation between, them and the other parent? And sometimes you have no control over that. But, I dated someone who has no kids, but also is really big on mentoring young men and mentoring boys, and, wanting to make sure that they understand manhood and what's it like to be, a young Black male, and has a true affinity for helping other young Black males grow, right? And so, and they don't have children, they want children, but you just have to not be afraid. Don't hold back on the questions, right? Yeah. How do you feel about, step parenting? How do you feel about co-parenting? Because everyone has their thought about co-parenting too. Like, the parents are still sleeping together, all that. So you have to ask those questions, because it is all a part of the process. And if they're like, well, everybody still sleeps together, then you already know they have a level of insecurity. And
right.
Yeah. So I think you have to ask them what their parenting style is. People don't ask those questions. They don't ask, what's your parenting style? Do you want public, private? Do you believe in spanking? What's your spiritual, beliefs? You have to ask all of those questions when it comes to disciplining someone else's child. And then ask them about their own nieces and nephews. Like, hey, what's your dynamic with your family? So I think people sometimes are afraid to ask, someone that they're dating questions because they don't want to impose. But when it comes to your child, and if you decide to have another kid with someone, you need to know up front. Like
that part.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Heaven forbid, right?
Jeez. Okay, so going back to the whole area code thing, now that you've had your experiences and things, what has been the worst or best experiences that you've had dating outside of your area code?
The worst, years ago, years ago, I thought I was dating someone. We had a whole situation somewhere else, and their wife, I think they're married now, is a very well-known entertainer. And I had no idea, and I found out because and not that, it's not, when you're on the road, it's not uncommon that you're not at someone's house, right? You live in different states, but you learn very quickly, when you're young, like, oh, okay, we're just meeting up on the road, like, but you think it's just you, and this, anybody who's in that game, you'll learn very quickly. But I sent something to them. I think I sent like a little birthday gift. And and there was a little clap back, and not in a rude way, but it was kind of like, about not sending something. And then I found out later on, like, they're with this woman who is she's not exactly entertainment, but she's in the entertainment industry, and they are married. And I was
Did
like,
you find out while you guys were still talking? Did you find out while you were still talking, or did you find out after you guys had kind of ceased communications?
I found out after we ceased communication, but I knew something was up.
Got you.
I knew something was up.
Okay.
And you said they weren't married then, but they're married now.
Allegedly.
Okay.
I found out they were married now, but I don't know when they got married.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's probably like that. I'm gonna try to make it sound not as bad as it was. So I'm gonna say we weren't married
right.
yet.
So do you think do you think you would have been more aware of this situation if you guys were spending that same space? Like, you would have seen that there was this other woman if you weren't long distance? I mean, maybe you would have been around more? Because I think that's the other piece. I also feel like when you're kind of dating someone that lives nowhere near you, you're a little out of sight, out of mind.
You can be out of sight, out of mind in the same city.
I mean, you can.
Because I know people that got whole families down the street.
And that's what I was gonna say. I mean, in wishful thinking and in hindsight, as women, we're like, oh, I wish I think I would have known. I would have went to, but you don't know if you're going to their house or the house that they take the woman to. So, I want to say, yes, I think I would have known, but I also know I was young and I didn't know how to ask some of the right questions. Now, I have a very good intuition. So if something in my gut doesn't feel right,
yep.
No. So then what was the best scenario that you've had?
The best scenario.
She's like, clearly I'm not dating that person. So
none of them worked out. They all came to an end at some point.
Damn it.
Well, let me ask this. What's the longest length of time that you were in a relationship with someone in this situation? Like a year, 2 years?
Probably about 3 years.
Oh, you say it like you're not sure, like it's not a good thing. That's a long time.
No, I had to think about it because it was a good 2.5, 3 years, and then it was a little bit on and off. So let's say a solid 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say a solid 3 years.
And then what ended that situation?
Timing.
Okay.
Just timing. I think that it would have been a beautiful ending had our timing been right. And I just think that our timing was wrong. And I think we both hold a special place in each other's hearts. But timing.
There's no revisiting that? There's no revisiting that? Is there any revisiting that situation?
Is there room for
to revisit that?
No.
I didn't know maybe if the timing aligned now or anything.
No, but and sometimes you just you got to know maybe timing is another lifetime, just not this one.
Okay, Erica Badu.
See you next lifetime.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what was the best out of town date that you've had?
Ooh, did you go anywhere great?
The best out of town date, probably in Miami.
Oh, okay. Oh, she blushing. That was a good date.
I feel like I want to know more. Did he fly you on a private jet? Like how did this go?
One day. No, he did not fly me on a private jet. We met up in Miami, and we both were there for work purposes. So sometimes you have to kind of use work, and both are there. Look, we're gonna make it a date. What I think was so great about it is it was peaceful time on the beach, just talking. Which you can't go wrong with. Sometimes the perfect date is not dinner, roses, all the things. It's being able to be silent with someone.
Oh, say that.
I said my best date was a really chill night. Yeah. Oh, I like it.
We made time, right? So even through the work schedule, like it was like we're gonna make time. And then a little bit of talking. A little bit of talking.
She had to dust them booty cheeks off for a few times. Okay.
Leave an ass print.
Oh my goodness. She said it was a quiet time on the beach. I bet it was. But no, with that even being said, then
I'll say it was perfect because you can date someone, but you can't be around them and in silence, right? Where you're still in tune. So there were moments of, conversation, but then there were moments of, I'm here, I'm with you, we're at peace. And that's a different level of a date. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't always have to be all the glitz and glamour.
We've talked about that a lot too, like, people saying that the ideal first dates, and we'll get into the list later on this season, but we've asked that question a few times, like, what is the best first date? And a lot of women say it's like the intentional planning of something. It doesn't have to be the most expensive place. It doesn't have to be.
It has to be thought provoking.
Right. Something that is memorable, that you took time to plan it, that I'm gonna enjoy this time with you.
Yeah.
Like, that's always like a good first date. That
or not really good first impressions.
And it may not be your first date, but you know what I'm saying. But really good dates in general. So, but you did mention a little hanky panky. So we're curious. With long distance.
She's like, I ain't signed up for this.
I'm glad I closed that door. Since that part we say we're gonna close that door and make sure little man ain't hearing nothing. But no, how do you keep up with like your partner's needs or your needs when you're out of town? Or when you're away from each other?
So, grown woman, right? Like, you have to, we don't ask questions a lot, right? Like, I think we just assume what a person needs. And you have to ask them, what are the things that you like? And what are the things that you want? And if you're willing to rise to the occasion, no matter what that is, you have to figure it out, right? Like, for me, it may be making sure that if they like tea, I'm gonna make sure once they get to their room, the housekeeping has brought up the tea that they like, and I'm gonna have them write a note. So that's one way, right? If we're not talking about on an intimacy level, if we're talking about on an intimacy level, you have to figure out, are we FaceTiming? Are we leaving voice messages? What works, figuring out what works for them. But I like to do the things that they like. I'm gonna send you a gift. I'm gonna do something that you don't expect, but it's important to you while you're gone to make life easier for you, right? That, for me, that's how I make sure I meet their need. And I think it's not all about, a sex thing. Sometimes it's about what do you need to make sure you're at peace when you're done with the day. Okay,
that makes sense. And how are your needs met? How have guys met your needs when, not in the same area? Fellas, listen up in case you want to date this Miss Lady here. Go ahead, girl.
So meeting my needs is scheduling me a day at the spa, right? I need a day at the spa and massage. If you're not here, somebody else needs to do it. Like,
she says, somebody need to be touching this booty.
That is my whole love language. Physical touch is my love language. So if you're not here, I need some type of flowers. Like, I think I'm still a girl who likes flowers. I'm a woman who loves flowers. So if you're thinking about me, let me know, right? Same way for me, surprise me with something. And it's not about the gifts, but maybe you send me a card. Maybe it's the text in the middle of the day. It's staying, if you're close to one of my friends, maybe passing something along through them. It's the little things for me. But massages, that's all.
Top notch.
Yeah.
All right. So fellas, Miss India, outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, if you're trying to date her, send her a massage and end it with flowers.
Okay. Absolutely.
Oh God. Okay. So you did give kind of some parameters about how far is too far, but would you ever consider dating somebody out of country?
Absolutely.
Hey, she said that's a vacation right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say that because I do think sometimes we limit, if you've never been out the country and you've never experienced other cultures, I think sometimes we limit ourselves. And so like if it's somebody from Nigeria or Ghana or something, I'm open to it. Okay. But we need to really understand, what does that look like? You need to have dual citizenship.
Already.
Now let's be clear. Like, there is such thing as too far. You can be in another country, but I need to be able to be a part of your space, and you need to be a part of mine, right? So I'm not opposed to it, but I would really have to see, what does that really look like? And as you can probably tell, I'm open in some areas versus others. And probably I'm saying out of the country because I've never done it before. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to close myself off to the possibility.
And are you someone that's comfortable with, if you met Mr. Right, you would absolutely up and leave where you live right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the travel bug in me. I mean, the person who has such a affinity for travel. So I've always been the person who's like, I don't have to. A house is just a house. Yes, you want to make things a home, but your
Chair is
home
still a
is
chair.
where you are. So
Yeah.
what you
I said a chair is still a
She over here on
chair.
her Luther Vandross right now.
listen? No, I would yeah, I would move in a heartbeat. Like I'm not even, stuck to being in Charlotte the rest of my life. I've lived in Charlotte, in Miami, in Texas, and of course Portland. And I'm okay if, my forever is like, listen, I'm in Alaska. Whew, it's gonna be a struggle.
Get lots of coats. Get some good
And I
scarves.
need to see what that looks like for my child. But yeah, I would consider moving for sure.
Would you ever move, Leigh?
I think I would. For the right person, I would.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely would. I think it may take some time for me to figure out when the right time is to move. You know, I got a kid entering high school, and so I don't want to mess up what they've got going on right now. So that's really kind of my priority. But at the same time, for the right person, I can find the arrangements that would still work for my child wherever I go. But it got to be the right person. I don't know if I met that right person yet. Just saying. But yeah, and you said.
So I don't know that I don't know how I'd get to meet the right person based on how I prefer to date.
Right.
Like I would be open to moving for the right person, but I don't know if my own blocks would allow me to invest in someone enough who doesn't live near me.
Well, what if you met someone that did live near you and then they have to move for their work?
Then, that's different because now I've had that time to spend with them much more frequently. Yeah. I can kind of see how they are in their own environment. If their job is taking them somewhere else and they're like ready to propose to me, like we're on that level of let's be together. Yeah. Well, then let's figure it out because they're definitely keeping me in DC. Like I mean, there's work obviously, but work goes places.
Then if you meet someone, because you both pose a question, if someone lived outside of the country, so what if now your Mr. Right has to move out of the country?
If they're Mr. Right, then that's what we doing. Like if we're on that level, because I feel that it's taken me steps to get to that level where I'm calling you Mr. Right and I'm thinking we have this future. Well then let's keep building, let's keep going. Sure. It's just the courtship, I think, for me of courting someone, getting to know someone. That I have a really hard time doing that when I don't have the type of access to you when I want it at any time.
She said when I want it.
When I want it. I mean, like, I'm just saying, if it's a Tuesday or Thursday evening, but you're wherever home is, neither one of us are traveling to each other. I'm like, man, I gotta wait till next month just to sit on the couch with you. Like, oh, I don't like that.
Sit on something.
Okay.
And see, that's the hard part. Yeah. Like in Charlotte, I may talk to somebody, and if you're on the road, it already feels like we're long distance because you can't come sit on the couch.
Yeah.
And what if we both have kids? Now we have to plan around our kids' schedule. So that's the challenge. And I think probably that's why I'm a little bit more open sometimes to long distance, because you can be so close to somebody and there's still so much distance because of your schedules.
Right. So then why not?
And so it sounds like, though, that how you've navigated dating and relationships has been centered around your profession, because it's kind of put you in a not so common dynamic where you are traveling quite a bit. And that's a blessing. It can be a curse at times too, to constantly be on the go, but it's thrown you into this reality of this is what dating looks like for me because this is my lifestyle.
It sucks. Straight up. It sucks. And I'll be, let's have a very candid conversation. You could have never told me at the beautiful age of 40 that I would not, like, not that I want like a white picket fence and like the perfect family, but you couldn't tell me in my mind like it would still be this challenging to be connected to the right person. And and I'm, as we all know, you go through your 30s and you're like, "Ooh, wait a minute, like this this is up, like
we hopping on the other side now."
Right. I think you're right though, because I feel like growing, and we've talked about this before, that we always have these like mental benchmarks that when we were younger, we thought that by the time we got to this age, we would have done XYZ, and by now we were going to be living like the Cosbys and have this traditional family life, and everybody was going to be done with education and done with their loans and doing this family thing. And it looks very different than I think what we thought it would look like at 40 when we were back in our early teens, 14 and stuff.
And so with my job, I've been told, someone told me one time, you're never gonna find a man because you travel too much, and men want women that sit at home.
Rude.
Right. That's you and your thought process.
I've had a man tell me, yeah, you just don't seem like you have enough time because you're always on the road. And it's a gut punch because I love what I do. Like, I've always had a passion for marketing and branding and the whole nine. And so as women, sometimes we have to think, we have to figure out, like, do I choose my career over love? And I don't feel like it should have to be that way. I feel like you find somebody who is confident and comfortable in their own world, in their own space, and you guys figure out what works for you. And I just know that my person hasn't arrived because I shouldn't have to compromise, and he won't either. We'll figure out what works best for us, but it won't be, oh, you travel too much, or you'll make sacrifices. I truly believe, right? Like, I've never been married or anything like that before, but there's some things I will pull back on, but I don't feel like my man is ever going to say, nah, compromise your career for me. And I'm not like a whole independent. Right. Yeah, I'm not an independent woman. It's like, oh, I'm marching to the top. I don't need a man. No, I need my whole boo right next to me.
When you look at other women in your industry, do you see many successful relationships? Is there any truth to what the guys are saying about, oh, no, you're not going to find the person because you're not in one place enough? How does that look around with other women that do what you do, kind of the same age bracket as you? Are there a lot of single women? Is this common, or is this just someone who doesn't know what they're talking about?
It's common. It's common, but I do think it's a balance. I can't speak and say it's all women, but I know there are a lot of us that are great women that, we're kind of heads down marching for our career, and not that we intentionally try to not be in a relationship. Maybe, things just didn't work out, but there are a lot of us who, have had the challenges of dating because someone, maybe thought that we were too alpha female, or
and is it like that for men in your same, is it like that for men in your same industry? Do you see many single men that are doing the same line of work as you? But sometimes I feel like women, we get penalized for being just as ambitious and being just as involved in our careers, but because it seems like men get the pick of how they want relationships to develop, and women are waiting to be chosen, that there's more women waiting to be chosen, and men are out here being married or whatever their relationship goal is, and still being successful in their career with no penalty. So in your industry, we hear that they say, oh, the women, they're single, they're gorgeous, they're amazing and talented and all these things, but are the men having the same struggle?
I think that there are a lot of single men out there, but I do think that at certain levels in careers, in men's career, they have to kind of have a partner. And some of the men have felt like they have to have a partner to get to a certain level. I don't think that it's all the time, but you do see that a lot at certain men in marketing. Well, forget marketing, at certain executive levels, that, in order to be received well by their counterparts and not ask so many questions, that they have to have a wife or something. Now, I hate that somebody would choose somebody on account of not being judged by, their colleagues. But I don't see as many single men. I think that there are more men that have gotten married around maybe college or in their late 20s or 30s, and they've kind of found someone, but I don't want to generalize. And I do think the women are, there's a stereotype that, we're alpha females and we're so independent, we don't need anyone. And now you're battling with your career. I mean, what people at your job are saying, like, you're too driven and you're too passionate. And then men are saying the same thing, like, you don't need us. And we're like, no, that's not true.
So what kind of man would be like, I guess, the caliber that you need? Because I feel like there's a certain level of man, and not to say like a man can't make as much as you or whatever, not putting like a financial balance or boundary on it, but what kind of man is comfortable with the level of passion and drive that you have, that doesn't intimidate them and they support that, but also still meet or match your energy?
So one, I would say if you want to generalize the term, an alpha male. Like, you have to be confident and driven in your own right? You have to be the king of your castle already, and not looking for someone to, elevate you. Like, you have to stand on your own, right? I'm going to support you, and I'm going to be your number one cheerleader, but you have to be driven and confident. Confidence is key, not arrogance, but confident. Someone who is very driven, because again, I think a lot of people think money and only think about the money part, but you could lose it all. But do you know how to get it back? Right? It's that person who already has that hustle mentality, who is always looking to continue to solve the next problem, right? They're not just comfortable with just being comfortable, right? They want to make change. They want to continue to grow and elevate themselves. Not a person who's always like, oh, I just kind of want to be stagnant. That person is not in any way, shape, or form concerned or scared of a woman or threatened by a woman like me, because they know that a woman like me, I'm not trying to be the man. I'm not trying to be them, because they already know who they are. So they're not worried about me.
Right.
Right.
So
then are you currently in a relationship? No.
Oh, okay. Again, fellas, spa dates,
and flowers.
and flowers, spa dates and flowers. Okay, so in what ways then do you build trust with somebody that, like, how do you build trust with somebody who's out of state, or that, in your situation, that might travel a lot or whatever? How do you build that trust to have a successful relationship?
It starts with communication. I think that you have to communicate and be open to being vulnerable with your thoughts and feelings, and not holding back. Because if you hold back, then, we get in our heads. And so at this point in my life, I'm going to ask questions. But I also go by your actions. I'm not a insecure person, so I'm not looking for something right off the bat, right? You can't go into any situation like, yeah, I know he got a woman somewhere. Like, who? You're not even in a relationship. Like, don't think about that right now. Because one, when you start talking to somebody, if you think that they're not talking to anybody, or they don't have
You are sadly mistaken.
anything,
Yes.
like, you're crazy. You're crazy. But I think it's communication. It's being vulnerable, is knowing to ask questions and not holding back. And people they'll show you, right? Don't go in with expectations. I think if we put expectations on people, they will miss it
Let
every
us
time.
down every time.
Right.
Every time. So you build trust by allowing them to be themselves, be open. And if something's there, it'll come. It'll come out. That's, for me, that's what I do. We need to talk. Let's talk. Let's talk face to face. I also need to see your eyes.
Yeah. And in my case, my IE.
My IE.
My
Okay,
IE.
so if we don't live in the same city, you can't just be calling me on the phone and texting. We can't have a text relationship. I need to see your face. Yeah, you got to see somebody's face.
Yeah.
Okay. So what, I guess, like, what ways are, okay, I'm trying to word this. How would you advise people who are interested in meeting people out of state? What are some good ways for that to happen?
Right, because I might reconsider. I'm sitting here listening like, maybe this isn't the worst ever. So what advice would you give me to maybe reconsider like attempting to date someone out of state?
Yeah.
Well, first, I think you have to be open, right? Open yourself up to going to different events, going, if you want to meet somebody. So Must Love Beards in DC. I'm trying to get there at some point. So one, be open, to go into other places to meet people, especially when you go out of town. Be open to the possibilities. Don't have an initial expectation, right? Don't have expectations of people when it comes to dating outside of the city. And when I say expectations, I gotta see you every Tuesday. They're not gonna meet the expectation.
Yeah,
right. So
right.
if you already have set in your mind that the only way I can date somebody is if I see them every Tuesday, then they're not going to meet it. So just be open, right? Be open to what they're comfortable with, what you're comfortable with, what works best for the both of you when it comes to dating outside of the city, and make it fun, right? So maybe you don't always meet up in your respective cities, but you find a new city to meet up in and meet each other. So if I'm in North Carolina, maybe I'm meeting up with somebody in DC because I'm not comfortable with them being here. They're not comfortable.
That's interesting.
That's actually the advice that I have given this one over here about like dating. I was like, go somewhere neither of you like don't go to each other's hometowns.
Right.
Meet up and go to like a Saints football game in New Orleans.
Right.
Why not?
But even with that said, like I've heard situations where people like do those and it turns into fairy tale dating, like that constant honeymoon dating, because again, like you say, you're not going to their space. So then at what point do you say, okay, we're doing the fun things, we're doing the traveling things, we're making it work, we're meeting halfway, but then at what point do you say, okay, now we got to do I'm going to come to your hometown.
Like, after you've done the honeymoon phase, right? Like, because every relationship has that honeymoon phase. I mean, you eventually start making your way to each other's hometown, but maybe in the beginning, it's a couple trips where each of you are intentionally dating out of your comfort zone to know that person not on their home turf. And then if you decide you want to know them at home, then you get to see how they interact when they're in their own towns.
I had a guy, on the dating app that suggested a whole plan for me already. He was like, we're going to meet here, first date. Second date, we're going to meet here. Third date, you're going to come to me. Dang. Fourth date, I'm going to go to you. And I was like, bro, we haven't even talked on the phone. Like, you're in the app talking to me like this. This is weird.
And see, now, I've been on a date. I met somebody, and he told me right off the bat, he said, listen, I'm a traditional guy, right? I like to make more money, and we just had a deep conversation. He said, I like to make more money than my woman. I like to do X, Y, and Z. I want to be able to lead her, that whole leading conversation. And I said, okay. He's like, and I like to plan. I like to plan dates. For me, I have to plan and be in control of so many things in my personal life. So somebody steps in my life and says, listen, and I don't take it as I'm trying to control you. But I take it as, because I still have a voice, I take it as, okay, now I don't know about 3 dates, but hey, I want to plan the first 2 dates. You've told me what you like. I got it. Listen, when we get married, because I have to, there's the thought that women like to control everything, and I have to control so many things. Baby, come in and tell me what we're going to do. That's fine. What we eating for dinner?
I know that's right.
I do kind of like that.
I'm the same way. Like I, because being single, I'm constantly planning everything in my life. I'm the only person working on my team.
No, that's
I'm a team of one. So yeah, if you want to come on in here and to like alleviate these duties, please do.
But to your point, Leigh, it's a fine line. Now, if you haven't even asked me what I like.
Right, that part. We haven't even got out the dating app yet. Like we're still in the chat box in the dating app. Like I haven't, let's have a text first. But I do have one more question before we kind of wrap it up. But I do want to know, like, when you date out of state, right? What are some ways that you stay safe? Because it's easy for someone to kind of manipulate the situation, lie. We hear all the stories about everything else. So what are ways to stay safe while dating out of state? Or meeting somebody out of state.
I'll say this without saying I have some friends. One, we do background checks.
I was gonna say
we didn't do a background check or two.
And finding you somebody that's deeply rooted who can do a background check that the normal. So So one, you want to do a background check because you want to know who you're dealing with. And two, you always need to tell somebody where you're going. Always. I don't care. And turn your location on. Always turn your location on. Do not get in somebody else's car. Like if I'm meeting somebody that, we've talked on the phone a few times, even if it's in state, out of state, I'm driving my own car. I'm driving my own car. I'm not gonna go the same normal way I will go home. I changed up the routine, but you always want to do a background check. You always want to tell somebody where you're going. You always want to turn on your location, and you need to go ahead and get that little picture of
the license plate.
Right. Here's his face. Here's his license plate. The car that he drives.
I will say that we definitely, like, whenever you've done something or gone on a date, we're like, yeah, I can see you on my tracker. I'll be tracking her.
She does. She stalks me. I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, okay.
Yes.
Nick B, what are your takeaways from all of this, since you don't like dating out of state, but now you might be reconsidering?
That is my biggest takeaway. My biggest takeaway is that I am willing to try to be a little bit more flexible, maybe a little more open. I think that if I can have a conversation early enough in possibly meeting someone to find out what they're hoping to gain from dating, because if they're just dating for fun, then I know that it's actually not going to go anywhere. But if they're dating for a purpose, then maybe we can navigate that. But I'll try to be a little more open. I'll try.
Okay. I like it.
I mean, just a little.
She's like a little mustard seed.
Just a little. Yeah. Just a little.
I love it. I think for me, I feel like I'm doing it kind of right. I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah,
I'm not doing too bad.
No.
Maybe less out of state, maybe more in state. Maybe I need to.
I like it when you go out of state because then we can play.
Because I always end up in your state.
Yeah.
Because somehow my out of state dates end up in her state. That's very selfish of you.
It is, and I love that.
is all the good men or the fine men or the eligible men.
Oh God!
I don't have to go too far to find my guys.
See, so you should be fine.
Yeah,
what is the issue?
So I don't go out of state.
In that case, disregard everything I said. Stay in state.
Everybody go to the DMV. We'll find somebody for everybody.
Okay.
India, where can people find you if they want to connect with you or learn more about you or even just chat with you?
So they can find me on Instagram, or more Instagram than Facebook. So which I have to remember what my Instagram page is because that's bad. It is Indya Rose 213 on Instagram. You can find me there. My page is private, but you can.
But you can try.
You can try.
She's gonna do some background checks before she adds you.
And I'm nice. I'm really, really nice.
I love it. We know you are. We know this.
And real quickly, LaRie, what was your takeaway?
Oh, that I think I was doing okay.
That you're doing okay.
And that I need to maybe try some more in-person stuff possibly because I'm too focused out of state, but I need to do some more in stuff.
Yes.
But Nick B, where can they find you?
So I can be found on all of our platforms with Dirty Roses Podcast, our website, our Instagram, our Facebook, our TikTok. Or if you want to reach me directly, I can be found on Instagram at NickB_NickB, and that's Nick with a K. Miss Leigh LaRie, where can we find you?
I am everywhere at Leigh LaRie. That's LeighLarie, and that's on every social media platform. Of course, like Nick B said, Dirty Roses Podcast, DirtyRosesPodcast.com.
Yes.
And we'll catch y'all later. Yep. All right.
Guess what, Rose Buddies? We are thrilled to introduce our new sponsorship packages. Be sure to hit us up at DirtyRosesPodcast.com to inquire how we can showcase your brand on our platforms.